All right, let's do this. Very good. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to my stream. I'm Pierre, scruffy old Pierre. Welcome. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. I know that I did. And we are back on a Monday morning. School is back in. And here we are, a new season. Anyways, fairly new painting. Also, we started in the middle of last week. So let's do like we always do. Let's just go over to the computer over there. Let's check out what we did on Friday, and then we'll start our day from there. So what did we do last Friday? Well, we didn't exactly do what you see right now. We did this on Thursday. Because on Friday, what we actually did is add a second coat of this light purple, this mauve, because after this first coat on Thursday, you could see all the marks of the paint brushes. So we had to put a second coat. Always have to do that. Unfortunately, that's the way it goes. The paint wasn't dry enough so we could continue. And so that's where we're at today. So what are we going to do today? Well, first thing we're going to do is add some shadowing to this background. We're going to add a little bit of darker purple, a little bit of lighter purple, which eventually will, when all the painting is finished, it will be very discreet, yet it will give a certain amount of depth and richness to our background. So let's do that. Let me just grab a palette. Don't have to go very far. Here's one right here. And we're going to start off with the darker purple. Oops, that's not it. Here we go. And I'm going to have to be real careful because I know that on the camera, if there's a lot of contrast between the colors, it looks really cool. Unfortunately, in real life, you want the shadowing to be very discreet. You don't want a lot of contrast. And I have to keep in mind that this paint, when it dries, has a tendency to darken as well. So I'm going to have to try and find the right hue so it will look great. Because if my background doesn't please me, if the background isn't right, the whole painting isn't right. So it's important for me to get this to a point where I'm really happy with it. So I'm going to put the purple on the side first, and then of course I'm going to put the white paint afterwards, because we are going to, I did put quite a bit of white paint to get it to be this color. So we're going to put some white paint, but not as much, and hopefully we will find a happy middle ground of having a slightly darker purple. So, and I'm not too sure how to do this because this purple paint is very dominating, overwhelms the white paint very quickly. So I am going to put the white paint on the other side of this palette and then just bring in the purple little by little. But we'll do that together. I'll go over to camera number 1 and we can do that together, and hopefully we will find our happy middle ground. Look at this long hair right there in the paint. Lord knows where that came from. It seems to happen once in a while. I don't know why. Anyways, so we're not going to need all that much paint because I'm just going to be dabbing the shade. We're not going to actually be painting. I like just kind of dabbing it on to get that right texture, right feeling. So what brush am I going to use? I kind of like a stiff brush for that. What size now? I guess it doesn't really matter. I'm going to go with this smaller size. I think that will be fine. So, okay. This and that. It's Monday morning. I'm a little rusty, need to warm up. There we go. Okay, so let's go over to camera number 1. I will just bring that a little closer here. I have a little stool right here with some water that we will use as well. So there we have the dark purple and our white paint. So let me just wet my brush a little bit. I'll just go over and switch to a full screen. There we go. So I'm just gonna, first of all, get the white paint to be kind of a nice creamy texture first. Load up the brush with that. And I'm not sure I'm gonna have enough right there. Once it all gets blended, I seem to have less and less paint. So before I start bringing in the purple, maybe I'll just go add a little more white paint right now. Like I said, I'm just having to warm up a little bit, get back in the groove for this week. There we go, just add a little bit more white paint. Clean off my knife first though. I like keeping the materials nice and clean. There we go. Let's get the fuzz out of the way. There we go. And I'll switch back to camera number 1, where we will do this blending. Again, I'm still just going to get the white to be a little bit more, I don't know what, more of the texture that we want. Okay, and now let's bring in the purple. So just going to do a little corner of it first. And we're going to have to try a little bit first and then try a little more. Like, is this darker than what we have on our wall? So let's go up to the wall. Let's just zoom in onto this lower corner here, just to do a little tryout, like right in here. So this is the lighter color. We wanted to start with the darker. Let me just add a little bit more of the darker purple in there. Now you're going to say, well, what's the difference if we start with the light or the dark? It always ends up being the same. You're right, you're right. So, okay. I'm blending the colors, but looking at my palette rather than looking at the camera. So let's bring the camera down and zoom out a little bit. There we go. Just trying to compare this a little bit to what we have here. And it still looks a little lighter. So let me just add a little more of the darkness, dark purple here, and keep blending. I don't want to go too radical. Don't want it to be too drastic, as I mentioned. So we're going to just be patient and do this in several little stages. Make sure that all this blending is nice and homogeneous before we try it out on the canvas again. Just grab a little bit of water. There we go. So is this a little still lighter than our canvas? Remember that it's going to darken as it dries. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the canvas again. I'll go on this lower corner here. So that is still a little bit lighter than our canvas. And I'm going to go with that color first. Even if it's, I said we'd go with the darker, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go with this color here. I think it will darken nicely. It will look all right. So I'm going to go up on that upper left-hand corner where I usually start, and let's go for it. It's a little bit lighter, but not much. That's why I'm going for it. I'm hoping that when it dries, it will be like very subtle. And to be honest, I'm afraid that when it dries, it's going to blend in with the background and it won't make any difference at all. So, what to do? Well, I'm just going to continue. And as I continue, hopefully with the fan that's on in back of me, it will dry. Ah, Jesus, there's that friggin' camera again. Seems to just go out of focus when it feels like it. Just very annoying. Especially when I don't ask it to do that and it just does it on its own. I don't keep it like right now, for example. What a pain in the ass it is. Come on now. Is that better? Okay, let me get out of the way. I don't like being in the camera in front. So, let's continue. Okay, let me move the stool back. Boy, today. There you go. Move the camera back a little bit. Zoom in a little bit more. God damn you. Okay, I put it on, it was on manual, then I put it on automatic focus. Now it's back to manual again. Hopefully all this is gonna work itself out. Kind of a pain in the neck though, I must admit. All right. Let's go back to the top here of this canvas. Let me move the camera a little bit here. Just like that. Zoom in a little bit. There we go. Now I'm getting a little paranoid with this auto focus. Rather be worried about the painting than worried about the camera. as it dries, it is going to be a very subtle. Question is it going to be too subtle? Am I going to have to go over this with a lighter or darker color? Well, we'll find out in a few minutes when it dries. All right. Let's go in here. Problem is that when I'm doing the background like this, the camera has nothing to focus on. When it's all one solid color like this light purple, well, the camera is not just smart enough to realize, like, hey, there's a canvas that we need to focus on. So I guess that is why I'm having so much problem, because it's true, when I'm actually painting, I have a lot less of a problem when the camera has something to focus on. Not always, now that I think about it. So that's only half true what I'm saying. Okay, so let's pull this camera back and move it out of the way. So as it dries, it's darkening a little bit darker than the actual background. Now, I am not exactly sure that it's going to be dark enough. Might be. Anyways, I'm going to come back over here for now and add some more white paint to our purple. And let's see if we can't get another shade of this pourpre to add a little variation to our painting. There we go. So let me just step back for a second. Okay, it is like some areas, like right here it's dry, right here it's dry, and it's definitely drying a little bit darker than our background. So let's just give it another few seconds. As it's drying, I'm going to try to get this lighter shade of purple together. Again, as subtle as possible. It's kind of difficult to judge, of course, as I mentioned earlier, because I kind of have to almost guess what the final product is going to be once it dries. Not obvious. Like I said, on the camera it looks awesome, but so there's a little bit lighter for sure. And I have a feeling maybe a little too light. Maybe way too light. So I'm just going to add, again, just a little bit more of this purple. Hopefully I didn't put too much in. Add a little water. This looks pretty good. Let's go back and try to see what this looks like as a little sample on our canvas at one point or another. So I'm going to just maybe zoom in right in this area right here. I'll switch cameras so you can see what I'm doing. This looks like it's going to be way light, probably too light. Right, that sticks out quite a bit right there. So I am just going to darken it just a little bit more. So I can do that right here. So that is our light color right there. I know with the reflection of the window, kind of hard to see, but I'm just going to add just a little bit more. Hopefully I didn't put too much more. Just grab a little bit of water there. The purple is probably one of the hardest colors I had to do the shadowings with. So what does this look like now? I think the only way we can tell is by trying it on the canvas. Let me just mix all this up again. Make sure that there are no streaks of white. We want this to be nice and homogeneous. So what's this going to look like? So let's go back to our little spot that we just did a few seconds ago. Right there, let's zoom in. And I don't know if you can see, but right there it's starting to get dry and you can see very subtle darkness. Let me bring it up a little bit. See right in there? All that is very subtle, but it is different, which is kind of what we were looking for, right? A very subtle background. So let's try this now. Oof, that's still very light, isn't it? Very light. So I'm just going to add more purple. I told you that we were going to do this in several steps at a time just to make sure we find the right hue that we want. Okay, so we've darkened this quite a bit here. Hopefully not too much. We still want to stay on the lighter side of our purple here. So let's see what this does now. So I'll bring the camera back up. I'll go back to our little spots right there. Well, we're a little darker, but it's still a little darker, but still a little bit too light, I'm afraid. So I'm just stepping back and trying to think about this whole thing for a few seconds. So let's pull the camera back. Let's go down here to our palette. And again, let's add a little more purple. So it's darkening up quite a bit, at least on the palette. Let me blend all this in. Okay, let's come on back up to our little canvas here. Again, I'm just going to show you a little bit of that area. You can see now very clearly the shading that is slightly darker, and it's exactly what I was hoping for, a very subtle shadowing. And now I'm hoping for the same thing, but on the lighter side of our canvas. This is still very light, too light for my pleasure. So, once again, I'm sorry about this, but getting it right is so important. So I'm just going to add more purple, and we're going to darken our light purple. We'll get it right eventually. We got nothing else to do today because we need all this paint to dry for me to keep continuing painting. So once this is done, we are done for the day. So might as well just take our time to get it right. Just gonna add maybe just a little bit more. Hopefully I won't regret it. Okay, let's blend all this together here. Oops, I forgot to kind of bring down the camera so you can see, even though this is not all that thrilling. But let's just keep blending this paint to get that right color that we want for the lighter purple of our painting. So, again, I'm going to come up here. I'm going to try this. And this is definitely a lot better. So I'm going to hold off this a second. And I'm going to just come here very quickly, grab a rag that I'm going to wet. And I'm just going to wipe off the paint that we put on. And that I will paint over in just a second. There we go. Just want to get rid of that very light purple so that we just end up with what we have there. Let me grab my palette again. Sorry for moving in front of the camera. So let's see. So that's a little lighter, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. As it dries, it's going to darken, of course, a little bit. So it should come out just right once it is completely dry. So let's pull the camera back. I'll move it out of the way so I'm not in front of it. And let's continue with our shading here. It's very discreet. Discreetly adding a little bit of lighter shadows, which of course is going to get painted over and over and over again. So a lot of this we will never see, except that it's going to just add a little bit of depth, which will make everything so much cooler. Okay, so let me just zoom in a little bit over here. Grab some of this purple. Just like that. Don't have to put a ton of it. We just want it to be very discreet. Especially some of these areas, there are going to be plants on top of them. And I have our electromagnetic waves, bubbles, planets. There's going to be a lot of stuff on top of this background. So just a little bit here, a little bit there. Pull the camera back. Actually, right in here, I think maybe I'll do a major zoom. Like that when I edit my film for tomorrow's recap, I will have a different, just a little more images to play with when I do the editing of my movie. Because besides the recap, also when the painting is finished, I do another, oh la la. Bonjour, Chairman.
See you later, my friend.
See you later. How are you?
Fine, and you?
Ah, my sandwiches. T'es comme Uber Eats. Tu m'apportes à manger, tu m'apportes à boire.
Do you want to drink the Coca-Cola?
No, that's okay, merci.
Voilà.
Yes, ça marche. Merci, John. Hein, c'était franchement trop sympa. That's my friend Jalil, who has a studio upstairs where he fixes and makes African instruments like djembes, balafons, koras, all these extraordinary instruments so that he plays as well, of course. And I bought a 6-pack of heavy bottles of water and I leave them downstairs. Look at that fucking thing. Out of focus again. Sorry, folks. And as I was saying, so I buy the 6-pack of water that I leave downstairs because it's too heavy, and he just brought them up for me, which was very nice of him. That's why I was thanking him so much. There we go. This camera over a little bit as well. So I'm wondering if I don't have to buy a new camera. Maybe it's my camera that's getting too old or something. That's why it's always going out of focus. I have no idea. But anyways, so this is where we are at. And you know what? As this lighter purple dries, it is darkening so much that it looks like the darker shade that we did earlier. Right? Let me just show you one area, maybe right in here. Right? You can't tell the difference. This is the darker shading. And right, oops, the camera's not in the right spot, but right here. This is the lighter, and as it's drying, it's almost as dark as this part. So that's not going to work at all. So I am going to come back over here. I'm going to add some white paint, and I see I really have to go radically lighter if I want it to be lighter when it's dry. So I got screwed out of that one. Completely fooled me. So I am going to add quite a bit of white paint then, and we'll go back maybe to that first really light shade that I had. Maybe that's, as it dries, maybe that would have dried to be just right. Who knows? So I'm going to come back to camera number 1 here, and I'll bring it down, and let's blend again this purple. So this is the purple we had, and I'm just going to add a bunch of white to it now. Make it quite a bit lighter. Okay. Boy, the shading is going to be so thick when it's done. Okay, so let's go back here. This is, I'll zoom in that part right here, which is just about dry, but this is the area which should have been a lot lighter. And as you can see, it's almost as dark once it's dry as what it was next door. So that is not what we want. So I'm going to go with this way lighter shade, which I am keeping my fingers crossed that when it's dry, it will darken quite a bit as well. Okay, so I'll just keep going and we'll see when it's all dry what it looks like. I'll pull the camera back because I'm going faster than the camera's moving, obviously. I'll have to fire the cameraman who's not keeping up with the tempo. Okay. It's going to go on top of what we did earlier. Okay, let's go in this upper. I'm trying to do this as quick as possible so that the part that's not quite dry from earlier will blend in with this lighter color before it dries. That's what I'm trying to aim for. So just like that. So we'll have to see how all this dries. It does look so much lighter than what I was hoping for, but for some reason, maybe as it dries, it'll darken. Theoretically, it should. Let's see what all this gives. Like I said, there's so much going to go on top of this that there's going to be splattering and So that is what it looks like in this area. Of course, all this part right here is still very wet. And as it dries, hopefully it will darken somewhat. I'm not too worried about it. As I said, there's so much going to go on this canvas on top of all this that it's going to be fine. Okay, so that is basically the conclusion of today's stream. I mean, it was really 42 minutes, pretty short. Tomorrow's going to be a long day because we are going to do our electromagnetic waves, and then we're going to put the background color to our little planet. So tomorrow we'll be at least here a couple of hours. Anyways, like usual, I want to thank you for joining me on this adventure, and I hope, oh boy, I do look kind of scruffy, don't I? Anyways, I hope you'll join me as well tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time to continue on this background. I'm going to leave you like usual with my schedule and by saying, ciao mes amis.